Will they have servers in all 5 buildings, or what's the makeup of that? And also, you all voted to have, I know I read in the article that Mr. Bohannon had stated that Google had said they would use up to 4 million um, gallons of water per day, but he said it would probably be more like a million. But you all voted on a franchise tax at like 1.4 million if they go over. Is that daily? Is that a daily tax, or is that a monthly tax where you do the average consumption? Um, at any rate, those are my concerns. I don't know if this is.
If
Yes,
you,
sir.
well, are you finished? Yeah. If
Yeah, I'm
you'll,
good.
that sheet of paper, if you don't mind us, we'll see.
These are note cards.
But just so we can make certain all those good questions, the people who are behind you will be able to answer that later.
Okay, well, I'll get it. I'll catch them.
You
I
want to
get
catch?
it. Well, I get copies.
Okay.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you. Uh-huh.
All right.
All right.
All right. We got a Miss Leah White. It looks like she's from North Little Rock, though. But
Good evening, all. My name is Lee White, a concerned citizen and constituent of Arkansas. I come before you today to speak out against the AVO data center. I'd like to pose a question. Do you know that there's already a data center in Little Rock, right off Chenal Parkway? You wouldn't know it because it's quiet, it's small, and unsuspecting. It blends in right next to the car wash. A maximum of 1 to 3 people are on staff all day. And I know because I work there sometimes. Data centers are needed, but not at this scale, and especially when they do not benefit local businesses, like the one off Chenal Parkway. AVO Digital have proposed 4 other data centers in the country. Notice how I said proposed, because they haven't actually built any of them. How can they promise environmental friendliness with zero data to back it up? I would urge you to go to avodigital.com, but it wasn't loading at the time of me writing this. They don't want you to do your research. The water and electric companies are using this data center to bail them out on the lack of infrastructure improvements. Instead of using our tax dollars appropriately, they are selling out Wrightsville. They push this project out to the west, as Mr. Bohannon put it, and states that any upgrade AVO needs, they will provide. One second. Where are the contracts? Where are the people's vote in this? What stopped the full halt of this project is already invested money. That means this discussion has been in the hands of the Little Rock Chamber for some time, at least 2024, I believe, and we were only informed of it this year. They are not giving constituents time or an opportunity to vote against these massive sores on the community. Justice Stowers said just last week, the future is AI, the future is data centers. District 13, is that how your representative feels about corporations and businesses who are actively working to take your jobs and raise your utilities as a bonus? I mean, it's pretty clear to me that that is the case. He believes that to go forward, we must continue to raise the bar and raise the bar. Well, the bar reaches a limit and the people have reached their limit. I have reached my limit, and I thank you so much for your time.
thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're now at the moment where we're going to start. Before we do the readings for item number 12, we'll now have a presentation from a number of different individuals a part of this whole process. As I want to stress to these individuals, um, just keep it tight because we got a lot of folks here who want to talk tonight. So please keep um, keep it tight as far as you go. We'll start with whoever's here for the Google representation.
We turned in cards, she and I.
We haven't gotten to your car yet. So if you had, make sure for those, this is your first time, what we just had was citizens communication, which we allow anyone to speak at 3 minutes each. And so that's what we just went through. So if you didn't write it down a yellow card, you wouldn't have been called upon. Now, I'm pretty certain your name's in here with all these cards right here. And so after we have this presentation from these individuals who are here, the individuals are representatives from Google, Energy Arkansas, Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority, and Central Arkansas Water, all in that order. Then I'm pretty certain, because many people have shared various questions with the city board members. City board members will ask them some questions, some questions you all have already shared today. They'll ask their own questions as elected members to these individuals. They'll go through that process, and once we feel like they've asked all the questions that they want to ask, we then will go to this whole list throughout the process, and then we'll then go to the readings as it relates to the 3 readings. All right. If everyone will state their name.
Of course. Hello, my name is Laurel Brown. And forgive me, I know there were a lot of questions, so I'm not sure if I'm limited to 3 minutes, but I did want to take the time to be responsive to as many questions as possible. So if I have to.
You all have a presentation, because
Okay,
a lot
perfect.
of you all got a presentation time of about 20 minutes altogether.
Perfect.
And then these individuals will then ask you. I can't ever tell them how many questions I ask, and they'll probably ask a whole lot of questions, and they'll be back and forth.
Okay.
That's the process. And then, of course, again, for everyone will be heard tonight. I want to make sure we're very clear. Everyone will be heard tonight. Excuse me? Mr. Wise, I would make sure everyone understands the rule. There's a 3-minute time. So maybe not be the best question to ask, but there's a 3-minute time limit. All right. On the yellow cards, there's no time limit on the white cards. However, Ms. Wells, if you've watched any of our city board meetings, if someone takes too much time, there will be. I'll be very surprised if there's not a city board member that asks that we encourage and create a time limit. So there's no time limit on white cards until they're made to want to have a time limit on white cards. So don't abuse your time. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Good evening, city directors, Mayor Scott, and members of the public. My name is Laurel Brown, and I'm the Public Affairs Manager lead for Google. And I'm here because I recognize that people are concerned. People have questions, they hear rumors, there's concerns about health, and people just want answers. And so I want to make sure that we are here to share more information than you've probably had at this time. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about me. Before joining Google, I spent over 20 years in economic and community development, focusing on public-private partnerships, everything from affordable housing and neighborhood revitalization to small business development and green infrastructure, like creating parks and public spaces that tangibly improve the quality of life, daily life. My career has been built on one simple premise: using real estate investments to create real economic opportunities and improve the lives of local residents, not for the community, but collaboratively with the community. I know how important these decisions are to a city, and I respect the weight of the choice before you tonight. But that's exactly why I joined Google, because our projects focus on creating win-win opportunities for the communities and for all the people and businesses that use Google services every day. Now, I know my title is Public Affairs, and people think, oh, she's just a talking head for Google. My role is twofold. So of course, I work with the technical teams that help develop the data centers. We have conversations every day about how to responsibly use water, how to responsibly use energy. But also my role is talking with the communities, talking with local leaders from churches to small businesses to understand what are the community concerns. And in those conversations, I take that feedback back to the development team. It is not a one-way conversation. I'm not a talking head. I am a collaborative entry point for Google in conversations with Google. So I wanted to start there. So let's a little bit about why we're all here today. And I want to start off, I would imagine that most of you are here tonight because you received an email or an online message encouraging you to attend. That happened because of a data center. People streaming this meeting online are doing it because of a data center. The GPS on your phone that helped you navigate here tonight was because of a data center. The logo a new business created to advertise their shop, the streaming TV service you watch at home, the app you use to check your bank account, the digital x-ray your doctor reviewed before your last physical, all of that is made possible because of data centers. Even the ambulance that dispatches to an emergency in your neighborhood gets there faster and safer because of a data center. I know it's hard to visualize just how much data we use every day, but our collective appetite for digital services is growing. To meet that demand, we must have the physical infrastructure to back it up. Google wants Little Rock to benefit from this technology growth. So tonight, I want to separate speculation from fact and hopefully ease some of the fears and concerns that people have. Based on all the rumors, I understand it, but we are here to help guide some of these conversations. So one of the questions that we get is, why Little Rock? And it's a fair question. And the answer is twofold. There's no big secret conspiracy, but one, again, we're looking at demand from businesses and people for cloud services. And we want to be where the businesses and people that we want to be near the places that businesses and people that use our services are. And two, these data center projects are fairly large structures and they're very complicated. And so we have to, in the first place, be in a location that is suitable in size to fit our data centers. And so, there's additional considerations in addition to just, physical size is access to energy, access to other resources that are needed to power the data center. So that's the baseline. But then I think there's a very unique advantage being in Little Rock, and that's because the project would be sited at the Port of Little Rock, an industrial park that is built to manage large industrial projects, to mitigate some of those impacts that might otherwise arise. Intentional planned zoning, built responsibly to the scale of infrastructure projects like ours. And then there's the other side of it, the human side of it. People want to work at a data center. There's a lot of great opportunities, particularly at Google data centers for jobs and workers. And many people think, oh, to go to get a Google data center, I have to have 10,000 million degrees to get a great six-figure job. It's not the case. At a Google data center, people, even without a college degree, can earn a six-figure job. There's a plethora of jobs and opportunities within the data center, supportive of the data center, in construction, and then also all the opportunities that we work with in partnership with the communities where we are sited. So let's talk about exactly where we are today in this process. We are still in the early due diligence stages of this process. I've seen online we're going to be constructing a project tomorrow, and we're still very early. So if you've heard that, it's not correct. Right now, Google is performing standard technical studies, engineering research, environmental studies, and utility load modeling to determine technical viability. A final decision to build is only made after all diligence and public reviews are complete. And candidly, we have not reached that point. At this point, again, we're conducting the necessary due diligence to understand basic elements of sustainable building design and project footprint since we've purchased the process. We had to buy the land to start to do the real math. And the information that we learn about the site continues to evolve. As we learn more about the
Yeah,
technical data
I'm
on
not
site, it
saying
changes
anything
the
in the mic right now.
calculations on that our engineering teams make. It's a highly circular, iterative process, not a linear one. The process has changed our core designs in the past. Doing our homework works, and Google insists on doing its homework, period. So as part of that homework, we recently received information about how our utilities can be routed to the site. That new data is incredibly valuable. It shows us a path towards potentially more sustainable building. And we're committed to building the most sustainable sites possible. Given the new utility routing information, we're going to resubmit our wetlands permit application with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We will use this time window with the wetlands permits requires to do what we always do, continue to investigate ways to responsibly balance our infrastructure requirements, community input, and environmental stewardship within a finalized campus master plan. We aren't afraid to adjust and improve our plans as we go. So let me be clear, no dirt is moving anytime soon.
Well, let me be
What you
clear.
may have read
She
online
just said the
simply
phrase,
is
let me be
false.
clear.
Furthermore, many oversight agencies will have to approve this project before a single shovel turns dirt. Looking at the long roadmap of local, state, potentially federal permits required, which typically takes at least 12 to 18 months, I'm confident we won't be breaking ground in 2026. Now, the last part, we want to answer your hard questions again, and we've seen a lot of them, and thank you to those who have shared them. But we want to answer your hard questions with data and not guesses. We heard your voice through hundreds of questions from members of the board of directors and from you, the public. As we look at these inquiries, we want to explain to you where we are in our process. And again, that's in the very early stages of development. Many highly specific details are simply too early to answer today. However, where we can provide answers, we want to lay out our approach as responsible data center developers. We set the trends, we lead how data centers are built. People look to us to set the standard, and we do that. Our practices are industry leading, and we have hundreds of successful examples of this approach in action, both at our facility in West Memphis and in communities all over the world. To help make sense of the information, I'm just quickly grouped the hundreds of questions that we've received into 3 general categories based on how and when we can answer them. So there's a lot of questions that fall into project-specific technical and environmental specifications. That group of questions focuses on the exact physical footprints and direct operational resources needed of the specific facility. Because we are still in the early engineering and evaluation stages, these metrics do not yet exist. We look forward to sharing this data as soon as our designs are mature enough to calculate them. And we have set up a website, littlerockdatacenter.com, so as the project evolves, you all can follow along the process with us and also continue to submit your questions to us. I read them, I take it back to our team, I read them. There's also more general questions about this specific project, which again, because we are still doing our homework, people often, you don't want to take the test and answer the test, the questions to the test without having studied. And that's what we're doing, studying. So I can't give you specifics about this project, but I can show you and tell you about our general approach to all of our projects. And again, we have an online website to view that. Questions about tax base and economic impact. Data centers are highly capital intensive projects that contribute significantly to the local tax base. Oftentimes being one of the largest taxpayers in host jurisdictions. Those communities frequently use those funds to fund schools, park, public safety. Ratepayer protection. A lot of people are concerned, my bills are gonna go up, Not with Google. Google pays for Google's footprint. We pay 100% of the cost of our infrastructure. We fully fund upgrades and electric costs needed to serve our demand, ensuring local residential utility customers do not subsidize our growth. Again, we set the standards. Energy grid and affordability. We're actively working with Entergy Arkansas to bring new solar, battery storage, and other clean energy projects online quickly to support regional grid modernization and project grid reliability. Responsible water stewardship. We take what we call a climate conscious approach to cooling our buildings. We tailor cooling technologies to local geographic conditions, prioritize air cooling in water stressed regions, and have pledged to
That I'm
replenish more
aware
water
of.
than we consume on average across our offices and data centers by 2030. I'm going to say that again. We have committed to restoring more water across our offices and data centers than we consume by 2030.
No, I don't
Our
see it.
brand new 2026 Water Stewardship Report is currently online at datacenters.google. And I invite everyone to look at our data. Based on our preliminary review, we will not use groundwater for our cooling operations here. We believe in preparing local talent for the digital future. Beyond direct hiring, we support workforce training programs such as our Skilled Trades and Readiness initiative called STAR. Many people
It seems
say,
like it's going to.
can
It's
I
been
work at a
humid
Google data
enough,
center? Do
but
I
it
have
doesn't
enough
usually actually
of
do it.
the skill set? If you might not be ready, willing, and able, if you are ready, willing, we can help you get able. Google.org has provided a $10 million grant nationally to train 100,000 electricians and support 30,000 new apprenticeships to build a robust pipeline for skilled trades. And then there's a genre of questions that they're directed to Google, but Google is not the best entity to respond to those questions. I want to talk about us as a neighbor. Again, we set the standard for how data centers behave. These are massive long-term investments. We upgrade, we adapt, we evolve the technology. But in over 20 years of operations, Google has never decommissioned a data center. We build to stay. We are true to our culture. We have examples of how we operate. We have access to our environmental reports. And again, this is something that I am personally passionate about, working with communities, leveraging this investment to do better. And so I thank you all for your time. I look forward to questions, and I look forward to the continued conversations that we will have, not just today, but over the course of this development project. Thank you.
We'll now have Energy Arkansas.
Good morning, Mayor. Well, not good morning. It might be morning before we leave, but good evening. I want to take a few minutes to just before I get in. I know we only have 20 minutes, but I want to take a few minutes to acknowledge.
I was meaning 20 minutes with everybody.
I understand.
Not 20 minutes.
But I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge the work the everyday work that we do with Entergy does with the city director and people of the city. That's work that is meaningful work, and so I appreciate the collaboration that we have ongoing. So a lot of conversations about data centers. I'm pleased that you all got an opportunity to hear from Google directly. Their proposed project is in the port of Little Rock, and everyone knows that's an industrial park that is designed and zoned specifically for these types of a development. Laurel spoke about Google's approach to environment, electricity, and water needs, and how they engage with the community. And so, as a utility provider, our job is to make sure that we provide safe, reliable power. And so I can't speak to the operations of the data centers, but the customer is here and they can speak to those. But what we do is we make sure that we provide the power. And so it starts with an obligation to provide that power to all customers who locate in our service territory. Our goal is to make sure that that power is safe, reliable, and is resilient so that it withstands the extreme temperatures of Arkansas. We also need that power to be affordable. Right now, our rates are some of the lowest in the country. In fact, they're like 22% below the national average. And we plan to keep them that way. And so one of the biggest misconceptions that I've heard about the data centers is that they're being built on the backs of regular, everyday citizens and businesses here in Arkansas. And that is not the case. You just heard from Laurel that says that they pay 100% of the cost to connect to the grid, to operate, but then we're also asking them to also do more than just that. For anyone that says that these data centers are being built on the backs of everyday residents, that is just not the case. It's not true, and they're just not informed. So, you know, I could go and I could talk about all of the benefits that the Google facility is going to bring, but the one that I want to make sure that everyone hears tonight is that not only are they going to pay their fair share of cost to serve them, they're also going to be adding additional benefits for the existing customers that are already right here. And so what I mean by that is because they are required to pay their full cost and they're going to be contributing to other fixed costs on the system, they're going to be adding or putting pressure on rates so that other customers' rates don't go up as much as they otherwise would have to. The West Memphis Google project that we've worked with and partnered with Google on, that contract alone stands to benefit customers by over $1 billion over the life of that contract. That's $1 billion in cost that we don't have to ask our customers for, but that the customer, this new customer that we're inviting into the state, they're going to cover those costs. So our existing customers don't have to. That's a benefit that we recognize, and that's a benefit that is real. So we understand all of the issues that are being raised around the country around data centers, and it doesn't fall on deaf ears. But what I can tell you is that we are making steps and making plans to make sure that we're abiding by all of the state and federal guidelines and the local guidelines to make sure that we're building our facilities responsibly. Our regulatory framework is just set up differently here in Arkansas. A key part of the protections that we have in place for our customers consists of our Fair Share Plus pledge. And before we serve any new data center, we go through and make sure that we have the available capacity to study that facility to make sure that we can produce the power that they need. And that power doesn't interfere with everyone else's power. We're building everything they need for them, and they're going to pay for it. So when I think about Fair Share Plus, it does two things. One, it ensures that the hyperscale data centers pay their fair share of the costs. And then they also add additional value to our existing customers. What Laurel did not talk about was what they're doing in West Memphis. There's a $25 million energy impact fund that is going toward, that's over and above what they are doing for the city, over and above what they're doing for the tax base. But they've decided to invest in the energy infrastructure of people's homes, weatherization, AI education, and also workforce development. They're doing that on their own. So there's examples of them coming in and adding value to an already good thing that's going on for us here in the state. So the first thing I wanted to make sure that everyone knows about Fair Share Plus is that it can be summed up in 3 commitments. One, there's going to be strong financial protections that ensure the data center pays their own way. So we're talking about long-term contracts. We're talking about deposits, cash, collateral, all of those things that go into contracts to ensure that the costs that they are paying or they're responsible for paying do not get shifted to the average residential customer. Secondly, reliability and power quality standards to protect the grid. Again, earlier I said, we're doing the studying that Laurel mentioned, or Ms. Brown mentioned. We're doing those studies. We do those studies for every project before they get settled or before they locate here in the state. And so we're making sure that they have facilities in place that protect not only their facilities, but also protect everyone else as well. And third and lastly, is accountability and long-term value creation. So every one of these projects remains subject to the Arkansas Public Service Commission. They are responsible for making sure that the decisions that we make and all other utilities in the state make are just and reasonable and in the best interest of the public. So that transparency and accountability is built into all of those decisions that we make. And those are the principles that we're relying on every time we execute a
About how long
contract
ago the
with the
ribbon day?
hyperscale data center. We're wanting to make sure that not only are they paying their fair share, but they are not causing additional harm to the other customers that are already here. So thank you for your time, Mayor.
Thank you. Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority.
Thank you, Mayor, City Directors. I am Ryan Benefield. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with your Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority. Jean Block sends her apologies for not being able to be here in person. Several of the points she wanted me to make. The first is just kind of go through the process when any new industry wants to come into the city of Little Rock that we go through, and this industry was no different. The first thing we look at is the wastewater they would send us if they were to tie into our system. And we have to analyze to make sure that our wastewater treatment plants can handle that wastewater and still effectively meet our permit. So when this industry first came to us, we actually had a treatability study performed to look at the quantity and quality of the wastewater that we would need to treat. And we determined that we can, at our Fush Creek facility, treat this quantity and quality of water. Second thing is the quantity aspect of it. So just to give you some statistics, currently our Fush Creek facility is a 16 million gallon per day plant. It's currently at 8 million gallons per day. So there's 8 million gallons per day of additional capacity. During wet weather, that plant actually can go to 40 million gallons per day. So that plant has plenty of capacity to be able to handle additional wastewater, which is the second thing we looked at. The third thing we require is that any cost of improvements to accept the wastewater would be borne by the industry. And in this case, because of its location near the Fush Creek plant, that makes it a very convenient location for them to be able to transmit and us treat any wastewater from that facility at no cost to our residents. So residential bills will not go up based on this wastewater. They'll fully pay for the cost of their treatment. And like I said, finally, the other thing that makes this site very unique for us is how close it is to the Fush Creek plant. That means we're able to do some things there, like we're going to have a dedicated line that just takes this wastewater to the plant, and we're able to handle it in an appropriate way and still fully meet our permit. The last thing, just so you know our process, any industry like this would have to get a permit from us. So we'll have regulations on what they can send us, how much they can send us, and they'll have to meet certain criteria before they can send us their wastewater. So those are the points we wanted to make, and obviously we'll save for questions later.
Mr. Tab O'Hannon.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Directors, pleasure to be in front of you all this evening. Tad Bohannon, CEO of Central Arkansas Water. Much like the first two speakers and the Google representative that already spoken, I have the same points to address. The first question we always get is the data center or is Google going to pay for the full cost of the infrastructure to serve their facility? Yes. The piece of property that they are exploring, there is not currently water service at. So they will have to build a line from there to the next available where there's sufficient enough water to serve the property. That is an existing property that was actually paid for by an industry before that was put in that they would be going to tie into. So there will be no infrastructure costs passed on to the individual residential ratepayers for this facility, or even to the other commercial ratepayers for this facility. The second thing is is, will it impact the availability of water to the community? It will not. We are very fortunate that the people that came before us built two wonderful lakes that are capable of providing a great deal of amount of water to the community. Our average day is about 67 million gallons a day. Our lakes can provide 120 million gallons a day, every day, each day, every day, all the time. Our treatment capacity is 157 million gallons a day. So there's plenty of room there for additional industry. You know, this comment has nothing to do with data centers, but it has to do with water in our community. We have great water. People stop me all the time and say, I hate traveling or I hate going somewhere else because our water is so good. We will continue to have great water available to the entire community. All right. The other thing is water is an economic driver. Since I became CEO in 2016, I've been saying we have a great product here that we can use to drive economic development. I've beat this into Jay Cheshire saying, go out and find industries that can support it. And he has done that with industries like Trex and Sage Foods that exist and use our water, and they love our water. And we want to be responsible stewards of that water, not just for the commercial customers, but for everybody every day. I live in this community. I would like for my son to live in this community. He plans to live in this community. He is going to UALR to get his education. Unfortunately, he's not a baseball player. But we take our responsibility to deliver high quality, abundant, affordable water to the community
What's up,
very
folks? This is Kenny with
seriously.
Just the Right
And
Angle.
we do that job every
It's just empty
day.
promises
A
after
data
another.
center does not take that responsibility from us. It stays with us, and that is what we do every day when we come to work. So there will not be rate shifting to the customers. There will not be charges for infrastructure to the existing customers that are here. And we have plenty of water available. Great water. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bohannon. Thank you, Bishop. All right, members of the board, before we go to the agenda card items for item number 12, do you have any questions of anyone here today? Director Miller?
Mayor, you don't have the actual issue before you. If the board's going to start talking, you really need to have the first reading.
Well, we're going through the presentation, so that's kind of how I'm taking it. We're asking them, not
if the board's going to get involved, then
is that what you would like?
Yes,
Yeah,
just
right.
the first reading.
Well, if we're going to do readings, I want to get through all three readings, so we have
That's
to
up
wait
to
for
you. That's up to
Director
you.
Hines. We'll do the first reading, and then when Director Hines gets here, we'll do the second reading. Gets back.
I'm
Madam Clerk.
commenting in the YouTube page
So everyone
right now.
understand what's going on. Our city attorney has opined that before the city board engages with those who presented to us, that we need to at least do the first reading on the engagement of the topic, being item number 12. The clerk will read the first reading. Well, we'll wait for Director Hines. I see him walking back. So. No problem. So Director Hines, I was sharing with everyone that I was getting ready to start asking questions, have the board members ask questions of the utility partners that are here. Our city attorney
Alright, folks,
opined
sorry
that
I
if the
didn't
board's
chime
going to
in until
engage in that
earlier.
process, we
I
need to at
kind of
least
caught
start
this
the
in the middle of
readings
public comment.
of this. And so we'll just go through the first three readings, get that
And I'm going to
under
have
us,
to
and then we'll go
leave
back
the
to
chat in
questions.
just a little bit.
Got to have, so everyone understands the rule. You have to have 8 people to suspend the rules to go from the first reading to the second reading to the third reading. A vote can only be taken after 3 readings. So,
So they
Madam
had a
Clerk.
vote beforehand, and now he's made it
An
harder
ordinance
for
to
them to
establish clear
expunge the
standards
vote.
for the development of data centers, to amend ordinances and city code provisions of the Little Rock Revised Code of Ordinances accordingly and for other purposes. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to establish clear standards for the development of data centers, to amend ordinances and city code provisions of the Little Rock Revised Code of Ordinances accordingly and for other purposes. Second reading.
Make a motion to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'd second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. We've had 3 readings. We'll now.
That was only two. I'm sorry.
That was 2. Oh, you got to do it. I'm sorry.
An ordinance to establish clear standards for the
You would think
development.
my eyes are pretty good since my eyes aren't. My ears are pretty good since my eyes aren't.
An ordinance to establish clear standards for the development of data centers, to amend ordinances and city code provisions of the Little Rock Revised Code of Ordinances accordingly and for other purposes. Third and final reading.
Thank you. We now had 3 readings. Board members can now engage. We'll go in order. Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I ask any questions of those who've just presented, I'd like to ask the city attorney to give us an overview of Act 851, Arkansas Data Center Acts of 2023, and how it relates to limits on local control and what we can and can't do, because this act seemed to speak specifically about crypto mines, but also it talks about these hyper data centers, because quite frankly, I get a lot of phone calls, texts, messages from individuals who say, I don't want a data center, period. I don't want one. So I need to know what this act allows us to do. Number one, can the city of Little Rock pass an ordinance that said we do not want data centers in Little Rock, Arkansas? Can we do that?
No.
All right.
851 has language that says that can't be done.
So for all these people who are texting me and calling me and saying, Director Miller, I don't want a data center, vote against it, you're saying we can't do that?
What I'm saying is that you're correct that Act 851 focused upon data mining operations, which in terms of noise, from what I've read, it's entirely different. However, it does use the language data centers in there, and there's a belief that it applies to all data centers. Therefore, that you can't just ban them.
So tell us what we can and can't do under this act.
Well, the act allows for the regulation of these data centers, which essentially is going to deal with zoning type matters. You know, you've got the authority to say where AFCO Steel is going to be or not going to be. And I'm not picking on AFCO Steel. I just know it makes noise. And you've got the ability to say these are going to be in a certain type of zoning classification, and the ordinance that's before you does that. Puts it in industrial 3. I mean,
Okay. I just want to be clear when people telling me, Director Miller, vote against data centers being created in Little Rock. I just want to tell them it's against state law. I can't do it.
right.
All right. So that's.
Everybody, we're gonna have some decorum. Let's just before we get started. We're just on the first question, so let's make sure we have some decorum, everybody. Director Miller.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I want to be clear about what I heard from the city attorney, of what I can and can't do as it relates to voting against data centers. All right. Now, let me get to just a couple of questions as it relates to what some of the presenters said, and specifically this one's for Google. So can you talk a little bit about you said something about oversight agencies that you have to go to get permits.
Correct.
Can you give us just some idea of the agencies that you have to go through and get permits for? And do these agencies allow for public comments during this process?
Sure thing. And what we can also do is post a little bit more insight on our website so that people know. But I think probably the biggest one that people know of and are aware of are the our U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And so that process in and of itself takes, estimated 12 to 18 months. At times, because of the proximity to the airport, there might be evaluations that have to get done by the FAA in terms of the height and distance of cooling towers. There are air quality permits that we have to go through and get those evaluated and approved. And yes, so there are various points. There's not just one point. This is not the only time that the public will be invited to make comment. There's, a special rate contract that happens with respect to our energy usage and power, and there's a comment period for that. So there's various points. And again, I know it tends to be a little bit complicated, particularly because a lot of these things are interdependent. So if we get kind of one thing here, then we might have to reevaluate our project. So we're happy to lay that out a little bit more. But to answer your question, there are a number of different regulatory bodies that we would have to go through. And there are still a number of different public opportunities to comment, engage, and evaluate the project as we present it.
Let me ask you, you made reference to a website,
Correct.
littlerockdatacenter.com.
Correct.
Would you be putting all this information about what supervisory agencies,
Yes, sir.
oversight agencies you're going to have to go to if they allow for public comment?
Yes,
Will
sir.
all this information be put on your website?
We can make that happen, absolutely.
That's your pledge to make this
Yes,
happen.
sir. Yes,
So
sir.
that the public will know when they can go before an oversight agency and express their
Absolutely.
concerns or whatever. They
Yes,
have
sir.
a chance. There will be public
There's
comments.
we're going to continue to be talking. So yes, sir.
And the average time on going to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, you said would be 12 to 18 months. So we're at least 12 to 18 months out just based on just the experiences that you've had.
Correct.
Thank you. I don't want to hog up the time.
That's it.
Director Campiris, then Director Hines, then Director Webb.
Thank you. It was a great presentation you made.
Thank you.
A couple of things. One of the things, and I actually have been to the property, so one of the things in your experience with your company, I'm sure you have put in other centers in places where there is required mitigation. Really talk about that with replacement of land, mitigation on site, and other opportunities that we have in this city if you come here to further our parks and that sort of thing and recreational activity.
Sure thing. So I think, we can talk about the wetlands permits and kind of some of those conversations because.
Well, I'm you and the Corps can fight on that.
Sorry.
But I want you to tell me about your experiences in other places and what you've done and how you have taken those opportunities if you have to use a wetlands and how you're replacing them in the city and how you've done that.
Absolutely. And so I'll talk a little bit and then you all will be able to visit our website. We also have a water stewardship report that just got released. So you'll be able to see and dig in deep as to how we do it. So, and I'll say just as a general premise, again, if you're going to lead the industry, then you're not just going to stop at what the ordinances require you to do. You are not just going to stop at what the regulations require you to do. Some people do that. It's not Google. So we are always optimizing for our business needs, the environment, and communities. So generally speaking, as a premise, there may be an ordinance out there, and we do this a lot in the water stewardship regard, where we're looking at water impacts locally. And we may do, again, if it's wetlands, there's certain wetlands mitigations credits that we may purchase. That's not enough for Google. So there are opportunities. And again, there's a lot of examples. We have a QR code that people can look at, that people can go to. I'm not sure how to get this to folks, but.
You have some pass to Clinton. We'll get our comms folks to get it online.
So there's an example in Oklahoma. So again, we can just look at our data center, but that would be not the Google way. So there's an example in Oklahoma where, we were working to do various, water studies, and we had our project located there. And kind of in the course of our work in Oklahoma, we learned of a native Cherokee tribe that was having, I think it was about, and don't quote me on the mileage, but they had some water pipage that was causing extensive leaking into the system. So there was a lot of water that was being lost. So our team, our water stewardship team, said, this isn't just about Google, this is about being responsible water stewards. So we paid for the investment to repair that infrastructure that did not benefit Google, that was about the community. We have tons of examples of doing work like that, as in terms of, the conversation with Entergy. Again, we could stop at just plugging into the grid and say, okay, we've done our job, and we're giving $1.1 billion of savings to the customers. Oh, we're great. We were happy that we've done that. We've gone above and beyond, but we said, no, we can do above and beyond. And so in that case, what we have is a $25 million energy impact fund that helps homeowners that are dealing with home challenges that make their energy bills go up, helps them get their homes repaired, unlocks federal dollars so they can access even more opportunities and lower their bills. And we could have stopped there, and we said, no, we're not going to stop there either. So in our conversations with the community, well before we went into groundbreaking, one of the things I said, we do this energy impact fund for communities. Well, they said, we'd love to be part of those conversations. We'd love to help you figure out where the opportunities are in our communities, who are the homeowners. And so we created, and this is the first time we've done this through our program, our Energy Impact Fund program. We've done these Energy Impact Fund programs throughout the nation, but in Arkansas, in West Memphis, I heard that people wanted to hear, they wanted to have influence. So we also stood up a community advisory council portion of this $25 million grant fund. So local leaders get to say, hey, there's a project here where we think that there's an opportunity to do more. So we don't stop at the ordinances, we do more, and there's opportunities to hear from the community and figure out where we need to dig in.
One of the things that I think helps mitigate the fear that your company sells on a community is examples of where you take your money and make your community more livable.
Yep.
So I would urge you to do that.
Absolutely.
And any concrete examples that you want to give us tonight, please do.
Sure thing. I mean, and again, this is even beyond the environmental. I think it was great in. So I want to back up a little bit, because people often ask about the jobs at the data center, and they say, how many jobs are at the data center? And again, part of that conversation is not just about jobs at Google. In most communities, some of the biggest job providers are the small businesses that we know and love, the restaurants that we go to and patronize. And sometimes those restaurants or businesses, they have an opportunity to expand, but they might not have the funds. And so for example, in West Memphis, early on, we worked with the Main Street West Memphis Chamber of Commerce and provided a $75,000 storefront grant improvement program to help local businesses down there clean up their storefronts and facades. You can go on their website and they say in their 30-year history of being around, that was the largest grant they had ever received. So again, there are a lot of examples locally, and I share this QR code.
And that's the important thing, I think. This community is a great community. And every one of the examples of the people that talked after you are Hal in this community and Jay in the chamber. But anytime you have an opportunity like this, anytime your company can put something back into the community that is tangible, that people use every day, that
Absolutely.
says, because you're here, this wetlands has been fixed up, this building has been fixed up, this opportunity's been fixed for low-income people to have piping. Those are the things that help make my community and our community better. So thank you. Tad, I've got one question for you. I know you think you were getting out of here, okay? I agree with you. We have a great water system. We have great water. But I think the thing that you and I've talked about for years is the opportunity we have with the other lakes where we have never tapped into them, but we have the opportunity, if necessary, to tap in and bring that water to Little Rock. So in a very short sentences, tell people what that opportunity is.
We have storage rights at Lake DeGray for 100 million gallons a day. So that almost doubles the available capacity. And we've asked the Corps to study Greer's Ferry for another 90 million gallons for there. So that's a long ways off. That's just kind of a shot, but there's been a few comments made. But we have dotted line secured, contracted for 100 million gallons a day available out of Lake DeGray.
That's the important part.
Thanks.
Director Hines.
Thank you. This question is for the folks, Laurel and the folks at Google. I appreciate you. Laurel, this question's for you.
You need to back up.
I know all these other folks. I can ask them questions all day long. So I appreciate you guys meeting with me yesterday and kind of filling me in on what your proposal is. I was very well versed back from our initial announcement last April to today. I know that there's some debate about whether or not we were transparent. We were very transparent about what we were doing last April when we announced it. We just couldn't tell you who the company was until later in the year, which we did. So everything else was there. So you can always talk about what you're going to do in the future, but it's what you've done in the past. And mainly you brought up your Oklahoma data center and the impacts on its neighborhood. So how long has that data center been there, and how long has it been operating, and what's its size?
Yeah, I believe it's 2012, but we actually have a website with all of our data centers listed, so datacenters.google. So I don't want to quote the exact date because
No, that's fine. You give me the ballpark.
Sure thing.
I knew it had been operating for quite a while, and I kind of like to share with some folks brought up. We've actually got 3 data centers in West Little Rock, all within a mile of my house. That total square footage is probably somewhere well over 150,000 total square feet. They've been operating there for 20, 30, 40 years. So I know them to be good neighbors, at least within a half mile of my neighborhood. So how big's the community size in that Oklahoma town, roughly?
Say it again.
How big's the community that's located in?
So yeah, some of the Oklahoma one, again, that would be on our website. So my projects primarily are in Arkansas, so I'm Miss.
All right, so I should ask you about West
Miss West Memphis, Arkansas is.
On the West Memphis, so what stage are you guys in West Memphis? Is it
So-
fully operational in the build stage?
We're under construction.
Under construction.
Correct.
So how long have you guys been working on that?
So we broke ground. We had our official groundbreaking in October of last year.
Okay. All right. And you already talked about your 25 million. And I just got online and looked at your water stewardship project, and that's the thing you were talking about, the project portfolio?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct. And we also, again, every year in connection with our data centers, we release an environmental impact report. So those reports, again, are an additional opportunity for people to see what our environmental impacts are. So we release, for instance, our water usage data for all of our sites, all of our metros within our portfolio. So those exist within our environmental impact reports that are released annually. And you'll see other details about, water stewardship programs and the like.
And I wanted to share, I'm going to share something publicly that I shared with you, the impacts of, I went to a meeting with the St. Louis Fed last week, and they talked about AI's impact on GDP. And it occurred to me that we've got 3 potential data centers just from Google in the state with West Memphis, Little Rock, and Conway. That impact on the state's GDP is going to be pretty significant. If you look at $3 billion, $1 billion in each data center for the first one and then the build. I found it interesting that, folks didn't understand that impact, that it's not just the next 12 to 18 months, but you guys are talking about what, a 5 to 8 year build out just for Little Rock and I guess the same in West Memphis.
Yeah, I would say, again, data centers, if you don't know anything about data centers, they're pretty hard to pick up and move. And so we're here, and the economic benefits, particularly around tax revenues and the like, those are ongoing benefits, the grid stabilization. So those have broader ramifications throughout, not just our sites, but also for the state as well.
And like I said, one of the things I share with you, one of my customers actually builds the cooling racks that go in these data centers, not just for Google, but for many of the AI companies. One of their owners lives here in Arkansas. One lives in Decatur, Alabama. The Arkansas owner is opening a facility here to build those cooling racks, not only for you guys, but others. And so we're already seeing a net benefit from the data center boom with initial 50 to 75 jobs.
And yeah, that speaks to the suppliers. So again, it's not just the data center itself, but there's suppliers, construction, a number of different inputs and businesses that end up contributing to the construction and operations of data centers.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I would also encourage you, I know you've sat down with the city board, and I look forward to your meetings with the community members so they can ask you directly, not in a little more private form.
Absolutely.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess after we hear from all of the residents, then we're going to be able to go back and ask questions if some of the ones that we're not going to ask right now, if they don't ask, and we'll also be able to ask the planning department about specifics in the
You can ask whatever questions right now.
Ordinance, okay. One of, and this is not related to the ordinance, but it's related to the big issue. And a lot of the questions that I've gotten about have been, and I disagree respectfully with my colleague about transparency. And a lot of the questions that I've gotten have been about non-disclosed MOUs between Google and Entergy, non-disclosed MOUs between Google and CAW, and things like that. And I don't know if that is, I guess, to Laurel, to Tad, if y'all would address that issue. I mean, so first.
Sure thing. And again, I think that's fair. People have questions, they want to know the answers. And again, part of the early part of this process is we're doing the work and trying to figure things out. And so part of us being able to share more information with decision makers is that we enter into these agreements so that we can share more information. I know there's this tension, right? But a lot of times we'll have proprietary business information that most businesses will respect the fact that there's certain information that's proprietary and you don't want it to get out. But of course, what we want is people to make a fair and informed decision. So we'll enter into those agreements so that we can share more information so that the decision makers are empowered to make the right decisions. So that's broadly speaking. And then again, also times, if we're doing, if we're in that moment, if we don't do that, then we're sharing kind of hypotheticals. If this was the case, and you can't make informed decisions if we have to share hypotheticals with you. So we use these as a tool to really provide more more information so that decision makers can make informed decisions, particularly in the very early stages when we're doing so much to figure out which direction we're going with our projects.
Okay. I have been looking at a lot of things in the Public Service Commission docket. We don't regulate the Public Service Commission. We don't tell the legislature what to do. You have stated, and Entergy has stated, that you all pay 100%. So this also is probably a question for Entergy. But as
and something else that I'm forgetting. That is not enough time for the public to substantively be involved in that decision. That is not enough time for us to be able to come to the board to express our opinions. And that decision has locked us in to where we are now. Had the land not been sold, we might not even be talking about Act 851. So I ask that when we were talking about transparency, it's not just, oh, we've done the minimum that we needed to, we gave the public notice that was within the however many hours that we're supposed to give it, but go farther. A representative from Google has said that Google is aiming to go farther and above and beyond what is asked. I ask that of the city as well. I ask that of everybody that's involved. Go above and beyond. One of the representatives from one of the utilities said, well, this study is available upon request. We're asking for you to publish it. We're asking for all the information that you can possibly give. We're asking to know answers to our questions. We're asking that if you can share anything about the contracts that are being negotiated, that are being made, anything at all, redact whatever business that is proprietary that is in there, but let us see what is going on so that we can see whether there are loopholes. We can see what the agreements actually are, what is actually covered. Right now, from my understanding, the contract between Google and in West Memphis and Entergy is still a secret. We don't know the actual truth because we just have to go on people's words. And that is not enough in this situation. We know that there is a Cypress Solar is being built. We don't know how much of that has contributed to Google, how much of that has contributed to rate increases that we know that have been seen, that are continuing to be seen because Entergy has lobbied for the Generating Arkansas Jobs Act that allows them to increase the rates for infrastructure builds in the future. We know that that is happening. So it is very hard for us as the public to trust what is coming from Entergy. We also heard last week at the Quorum Court that Entergy said that this is a 20-year contract, at least with Aveo. We don't know that about it with Google, but maybe it's 20 years as well. What happens at the end of 20 years? Is the agreement that they're going to pay for everything going to go beyond that? We don't know because it's not something that's been public. And so when we're talking about this ordinance, when we're talking about what we can do as a city, what are we going to do differently when it comes to transparency? What are we going to do? What are we going to impose into ordinance ourselves to say the public will be involved in this process more substantively, ahead of time, where we can pause issues like this before a vote is made? Can we institute an ordinance around community benefits ordinance? This is an aspect of community members are brought to the table for negotiations with businesses once a business contract or proposal meets a certain threshold, whether that's size, cost, or tax incentives. Sorry, keeping my words together. Can we do a community benefits ordinance? Port Washington, Wisconsin passed a ballot measure that was around if tax incentives reach a certain threshold, then the public gets to vote on it in a ballot measure. What can we do around that? This is so much money that, yes, like, we're going to get a lot of benefits. But we already know reports that are saying, actually, the tax incentives aren't that necessary for getting data centers into our communities because they need to build them. And they know that they want to build them in places, and we have a pretty good place to build. I'd rather it not be built, but we have a good place. So let's lean on the assets we have and not just rely on sacrificing our tax base in this way for 30 years. And not just for this center, but for future data centers. That's in the MOU. It's not just this one, but future builds. So that's one aspect of this. What can we build into this ordinance or other ordinances or other parts of the city that actually provide transparency for the public and provide meaningful input from us? I have a list of other questions that I have for the centers that we could be hopefully addressed in the ordinance. Maybe it's around ambient heat. We know that data centers create a map of a heat spot in their location. What is that going to do to the surrounding area? How does that affect what we already have in terms of an urban heat island? Excuse me, an urban heat island, and already sweltering temperatures. We know that things are getting hotter and climate issues are getting much worse. So are the projections that we have from the utilities covering those bases? Well, we know a recent study, I can't remember the words, but a new plan that was passed recently was talking about shifting from a 20-year to 50-year or a 20-year to 100-year plan of what the worst rain could be. That's shifted. So how's the utility study shifted? How's that covered it? Is it covering drought conditions? Is it covering not just maximum use per day, but maximum use hitting that on consecutive days? How many consecutive days can we handle? When it comes to noise, there was a comment last week at the agenda meeting around comparing it to downtown noise levels. Downtown noise levels are intermittent. Data center noise levels are constant. It is a different beast when we're talking about constant noise levels at a certain decibel point versus intermittent sound at that same decibel point or different ones. Those have different impacts on health of our community. So is the sound, the noise part of the ordinance meeting what we actually need? Have we talked to folks that are doctors in this area of how sound affects health? Have we touched on what chemicals and materials are used that may or may not be hazardous? We know that the ADUQ does not have any rules around PFAs or forever chemicals. And so as long as we're talking about, yes, we're going to meet standards, but if the standards don't cover something that is affecting our community, then we are still going to be hurt by it. So can that be included in this ordinance or other ordinances? To what extent can we look back at the zoning map and say, hey, these places are going to be affecting wetlands. Maybe those don't need to be zoned for certain things. And it isn't the entire truth that this area that was been zoned I-3 has always been that way. It was proposed last year to the Planning Commission to annex it into the city and then to rezone it as I-3. So let's be honest about what we're actually talking about in what is going on in this situation. And another question is, the hyperscale data centers are currently listed as permitted under I-3. Major ones are listed as permitted at that level, but they're conditional use permits at I-2 and I-1. Why is hyperscale not a conditional use permit at I-3, which would allow more public input into this process? I have a list of other questions. I've sent it to some of the directors, and there are many more that keep coming up because people are talking about this and sharing it and having useful discussions because we love this city and we want it to be the best it can be and we want it to stay that way. So what can you do to protect that? What can you really do to change this ordinance to go further? Can you do a moratorium? Can you do something that can actually move us forward in the community we want to see, where this energy that we have from the public around this can be harnessed towards continuing to better it? So I ask you to really reconsider this, to really consider what can we do? Where can we push farther? Where can we go above and beyond what is already required of us? Where can we set the bar? Thank you.
Lee White. I know she spoke earlier, so. India Jackson. Did make sure, did Connor Teffy ever come in? Okay. I don't think they did. All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi. Oh, sorry. What?
Hi, I'm India Jackson. I live on 145th Street around the area where they plan on building this data center. And I speak for all of us when I say we don't want it, okay? We really don't want it. The mission statement on the agenda says that the city of Little Rock is dedicated to improving our residents' quality of life. Having done some research, this and seeing other areas that have been affected, we come to the conclusion that this is against our best interests and our well-being. And you, sir, were absolutely right when you said you need examples, and I will give you some examples. And the residents of DeWashington, Michigan are currently filing a lawsuit, class action lawsuit, about the data center between the noise pollution and the air pollution, the water pollution. Residents are miserable. Older residents and pregnant residents are being greatly impacted via their health. Texan farmers have reported 30% decrease in the health of their animals, and the noise can be heard for miles. Up to 5 miles have been reported so far. And you're talking about, he said, the downtown area, constant 24/7, 365 days a year, right in your home. No sleep. Lights coming through, so it's basically daylight 24/7, okay? We are the natural state, and we want to keep it that way. If that comes there, they drive away wildlife, and we hunt. So if they're gone, you know, that kind of get rid of that option there. Also, we have Mansfield, Georgia. They have to store water in jugs just to flush their toilets. They can actually, you can visibly see the metals, their water turned brown, the metals in their water. They can't even drink it. The pressure is basically a drip at this point. So they, of course, they have to keep buying bottles of water. So no, it may not increase our energy bill, which I doubt it. You know, I doubt that it won't increase it. But we can't even drink the water, we can't use the water. We have to shower with this. We have to do all types, and we're living right where it's supposed to be built. So, you know, what everybody else says, that's awesome because it's true. But this will affect us on this street even more, because we're living right next to it, right next to it. West Memphis, speaking of that, they've had increase in pollution, nitrogen oxides into the air. The list goes on and on and on. I'm not against innovation and I'm not against progress, but this is not it. Data centers require a huge amount of resources, and they require a lot of water, they require a lot of energy, and that will put strain on the current infrastructure. So they're going to have to build more. And when these energy companies and these water companies build bigger, yes, we will have to pay for it. That's not going to come out of Google's pocket. That's going to come out of our pocket. That's going to come out of our bills. So no, no. Also, let's go with facts, okay? People have been testing these data centers, the ones that live in these areas that I was talking about, and there's more. You can look it up. But there have been reports of up to 120 decimals being outputted from these data centers. Now, if you look it up, humans, they start having hearing loss around 85 decimals. Animals, they start having hearing loss around 70 decimals. And with extended exposure, that's permanent hearing damage. So us living right next to it, and it can go up to 120. We're listening to it day after day after day. That is going to affect hearing. We have a lot of elderly people on 145th Street. That's not okay. That is not okay. I like to look after my elderly. I like to look after my people. My grandmother, she already has respiratory issues. I don't want to add on to that, because as much as they say they have safety guards, history shows that they don't. It is continually showing between everything that I looked up that they don't have it in place, and they said they haven't figured it out. I don't want to be their test dummy. I don't. So I understand that this is going to bring money to these companies and stuff, but money isn't good if we can't spend it. If we're sick or we're dying or anything of that nature, what good is it? We want to keep our community quiet and peaceful, and with that being there, it won't be that way again. Guys, I just want you to really think this thing through, because if you had to live right next to it, I don't think you would like it either. You wouldn't want to put up with the noise. You wouldn't put up with the wildlife. You want to go hunting. You want to go fishing. The animal's gone. So really, please, guys, think this through. And I know we can't get rid of data centers altogether, but we don't want it on 145th Street. Thank you.
Mr. Mike Poe, I believe you share with the clerk that you want to yield your time to Judge Wendell Griffin.
In respect of everybody's time, he's a lot more eloquent than me, and I would rather him get the time since he wasn't able to sign up earlier.
I'll accept it as I did earlier today during citizens communication for Angelica and Laura. No. Either one or the other. Judge Griffin?
So we don't take unless we get back, right? And there you go. Right here. And now look, tomorrow night, why don't you vote someplace, huh? Well, we said we were going to make anything special. Yes, why not? About the same time, yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, directors. My name is Wendell Griffin. I'm a resident of Little Rock, Arkansas since 1979. I'm a lawyer who would concur with what you've heard from Richard Mays. I've often tell people, if you want to get the wrong answers, ask the wrong questions. There has been a lot of talk about electricity rates. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. Please, you're talking about a land use issue. Land use is about impacts, and you've heard nothing from any of the people before you talking about these, about the impacts. What are the health impacts of the diesel generators or with backups for these data centers? What are the health impacts for children? What are the health impacts for adults? At what range will those impacts occur? And how will those health impacts be monitored? Where will the monitoring infrastructure be put? Who will pay for it? How often will it happen? And what will be the sanctions if those impacts occur to health persons? And how will the city reinforce the penalties? That's not in the ordinance. There's nothing in the ordinance about advance notification. If there had been an advance notification requirement and you had an ordinance, then within a period of time after 2025, there would have been a requirement that the community know. For instance, within a certain period of time after the land was purchased, that the community would know that this land, which was previously agricultural, would be rezoned industrial for the purpose of a major use that is incompatible with surrounding uses. Impact. Land use is about impacts and regulating impacts. And quite frankly, you have heard nothing from any of the people. You didn't hear it last week in the county, you haven't heard it tonight. As I told them respectfully and privately, what I heard was a lot of stuff. I'm not going to say what I told them it was, but it was bovine stuff, okay? Now let's be realistic. Pledges on websites are not certifications that you can enforce in any courtroom. I 10-time double dog dare you, I'm a lawyer and a former judge, to find a single case where any agency has been able to enforce a violation alleged based upon a website. Ain't ever happened, can't happen, because quite frankly, it isn't a duty to certify anything on a website. If you want to regulate something, it has to be in the regulatory scheme, and your current regulatory scheme does not have that requirement. So you need to have it amended. Now, I know nobody wants to hear that, but quite frankly, that's what you have to have if you're going to keep faith with your obligation to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the people, because we're talking about the exercise of my good friend, Mr. Carpenter knows what I'm about to say, your police powers. Your police powers. You can't police a website violation about a health impact that has not been certified, and you have an obligation to test. You cannot police a violation about a noise impact that you haven't required. You cannot police an electrician. You're industrializing rural areas. I know you're talking about the Port of Little Rock. Port of Rock, that's industrial, but Sweet Home is the unincorporated area, and the Sweet Home community is not in the Port of Little Rock. So what is the impact on your neighbor in the county from an infrastructure that you know is going to have impact because they've told you they plan to fill 17 acres of land that is already a wetland. What is the impact on flooding? What is the impact on flood control? What is the impact on drainage? Who pays for that impact when the flooding happens? Will Google? That's not in your amendment, in your ordinance. I've read it. I'm a lawyer. I'm paid to read. I'm pretty good at it. But let me suggest something. I've read it, and you don't have it there. You cannot enforce what you don't have, and you won't enforce it if you don't put it there. Lastly, because I know you're tired, and I don't want to belabor your time. And I am a preacher, so I will not say I'm going to my seat twice. There is a legal way for you to do what you want to do without shoving it down the constituent's throat. It's called taking the time to do it right. It's called taking the time to study what you don't know. I have told you what you don't know because it isn't here, and they haven't told you. And they won't, because they can't. The PSC doesn't do this. They don't have a mandate to do this. The reason why the Data Center Act leaves local control to land use is because the PSC cannot, will not, shall not do land use. You do. You have a planning body. And yes, Mayor, you do have an enforcement protocol, but your enforcement protocol does not carry a provision for this kind of use because you have never had in the history of Little Rock a use like this. You've had in heavy industrial, but one data center, one 150 megawatt data center has enough electrical load comparable to an entire city. There is no factory, no plant in this city that has the electrical load of one of these. We're talking about one Google, on top of those already here, and then a Vail. So respectfully, you do not have a history that prepares you to have your present enforcement protocol apply in a realistic way to what you're about to see. It's about saying, hey, we're going to apply speed limits that you have set for donkeys for cars that are designed to go 150 miles an hour. You haven't seen it? Guess what? You don't know how far they're going to build out the Google one. I did say, I paused for effect. These are expandable. They are expandable. Is there going to be an impact for the expansion? And how will you regulate the expansions? Will that be a new application? Or will it be a penalty settlement for the application? These are ways you can do this. So please, ma'am, please, sir, please, y'all, take your time to do this right. It's called a moratorium. Now, a moratorium is not a ban. I had to correct a lawyer last week who could not read a dictionary and said a moratorium is a ban. I 10 times double dog dare you. Moratorium and ban are not synonymous. You cannot find ban as a synonym for moratorium. It's called a pause, a delay. You had 2 years before folks knew this was coming to talk. You can take half that time to begin to study and implement a change to address this. According to the Google representative, they still got 18 months before they get ready to go. So a moratorium will not stop them. I'm not trying to stop them. I'm trying to make sure that what they do does not cause irreversible harms that none of us will be able to compensate our people for, and we will not have any power based on this ordinance to regulate. Please, ma'am, please, sir, you can do better than this. Please try. I thank you for your time.
Susan Leon.
Good evening. I will not take long, I promise. My name is Susan Leone, and I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Pulaski County. Thank you, Board, for taking the initiative to develop the draft regulations to apply to data centers and other digital infrastructure. My principal question for you with regard to the ordinance is whether it will apply to Google, since there's already been purchase of land and presumably contracts and stuff. If the ordinance comes after those conditions, will it apply to Google? I look forward to hearing the answer to that. The League of Women Voters urges you to postpone the vote on this ordinance until such time as the general public has had ample opportunity to weigh in. Up to now, the public's opportunity to do so has been minimal. And the League further recommends that you schedule multiple public hearings over the next couple of months to share your fact-finding and decision-making process with your constituents. They want to know that you're taking their concerns to heart. Thank you very much. Please postpone this vote.
And Ms. Susan, the answer to your question is yes, it will apply to Google. Google has yet to get a permit yet, but it will apply. Mr. George Wise. Take your time.
Mayor and directors, Mr. Carpenter, Vice Mayor, thank you for allowing me to speak. I first came to speak to you in January when a reporter did some snooping and told me that land purchase was for a Google data center, and I asked you in my 3 minutes to hold a hearing for the public to address a Google data center. Didn't hear anything, and I'm here today. I should identify myself. I'm here on behalf of the Arkansas Sierra Club. I'm chair of the executive committee of the Arkansas Sierra Club. And I was here in January on their behalf. I've written you a letter expressing our concerns about the data center. You have that letter, and I'm not going to go over all the points in that letter. Many people have already discussed those. I heard that you were going to take questions, that we should submit written questions, so I started typing. I quit at 50 questions. You have my 50 questions. The time that's been allotted here today is not enough time to answer all the questions that people have about data centers. I'm asking you to postpone a vote on this resolution, but I also want to offer you some suggestions about additional things that should go in the data center. And by doing that, I want to address some of the issues that we heard from the representatives of Energy and Central Arkansas Water. The first thing I'd ask you to add to any resolution or any regulation, land use regulation on data centers, is to put something in there protecting the Fush Bayou watershed. I've seen the footprint, I've seen a map of the footprint of this data center, and the entirety of the data center will destroy wetlands of the Fush Bayou. I've given you my concerns in my letter about the importance of the Fush Bayou. I had an email from a birder friend of mine. She was out on the property where this data center would go. She found 42 species in one birding day on the property that this data center will go on. She won't be able to do that anymore. So that's one suggestion. Regulate whether any hyperscale data center can destroy wetland in the Fush Bayou. The next suggestion I have is that any data center ought to pay for its own power with their own money. and that power plant should be with renewable energy. And I want to address some of the comments by Energy about the energy supply to this data center. I've not heard them say whether they have the current capacity to supply the power to this Google data center. I don't think they do. That means they're going to have to build new power plants to supply energy to this data center. And if you look at you can go on their website, it's transparent what their plan is before the PSC to develop new facilities to generate electricity, and it's primarily fossil fuels. It's primarily fossil fuels. Climate change is real. Yes, Director Hines, climate change is real. The planet's getting hotter and hotter, and we're losing ground with the rest of the world where they're developing renewable energy to power things like data centers, like homes, like schools. We're losing ground to the rest of the world. So if they're going to have to build new facilities, and if those facilities are going to be powered by fossil fuels, that means we're going to be paying, your rates are going to go up to power this Google data center. Don't let them. I heard, I didn't get to attend the presentation at the Quorum Court, but I heard Mr. Bethel say, we pledge that rates won't go up. What's a pledge? What's a pledge? I don't believe it. They're going to have to raise rates. They're an investor-owned utility. They have to make money for their investors. They're going to raise your rates. I've looked at data centers across the country, and there's not a single instance where rates went down when a data center was built. Rates are going to go up. I want to talk about water. Tad Bohannon is my friend. We spent a lot of time on a soccer field. He's the best youth soccer coach in the state. And I'm not going to stand here and dispute what Tad tells you about the availability of water. And I would challenge anyone, if you're going to come up here and dispute what he says about the availability of water, get the data to do that. We've not had a chance to get that data, but I believe that there's water available for this data. It's going to make some of my friends mad when I say that. But what I want to talk to you about is a regulation that would require any data center to be cooled by a true closed-loop system. In other words, there are ways to cool data centers that don't use water. They use refrigerant. But that's going to be more expensive for Google to use a closed-loop system. Now, I heard, Tad, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you at the Quorum Court. You said that the Avio data center was going to be a closed-loop system, that they'd recycle the water 4 or 5 or 6 times and then discharge it. That's not a true closed-loop system. The other way that they could cool this data center, since we've got the Push Bayou treatment plant, I'd like to know how much recycled water is discharged daily from the Push Bayou treatment plant, because you can use recycled wastewater to cool a data center. That's another option, and you wouldn't have to build out a line all the way out to the Wilson treatment plant. And we wouldn't use our good, clean, drinking, bathing, cooking water to cool this data center. I agree with Tad, we have the best water in the country. I've traveled a lot, and I've not been anywhere that has better water. I don't buy bottled water. I drink water out of the tap. Let's preserve that. I'd like you to reconsider the tax incentives in some way with the regulation. And I don't know quite how to do this, but Google is one of the, I think they're the second biggest company in the world. They have I looked it up, in their market cap in 2026 was $4.6 trillion. Why does Google need tax incentives to build this data center? And the reason we need time to look at this is at those incentives that have been given. This data center has been publicly stated will produce 50 jobs once it's built. There was a data center in Virginia that the tax incentives that they gave away to the data center ended up working out to $250,000 per job. Is that a good investment of these incentives to use this land and create 50 permanent jobs? I'd also recommend that you include a regulation that no data center can use backup power from diesel generators. Mr. Bethel and the other representative were talking about, if there is not enough capacity, the Google Center will use its own on-site power so that there's not a blackout or anything like that. Go over to Memphis and take a look at Elon Musk data center over there and the problems. It's powered entirely by natural gas and diesel generators, and it's in a minority community, and the rates of asthma and respiratory diseases are going up in the communities next to that data center. The other regulation I'd like for you to include is that they be required, and I think somebody else mentioned this, that any data center be required to pay for an environmental assessment. We know that they may have to get an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement, but you can require that they get their own, do their own assessment so that we know what the health costs are going to be. And the last thing that I'd like for you to do, and I have other suggestions, but I'm going to limit it to just a few because I know everyone's ready to get out of here. I'd like for you to put in there some sort of requirement that Google disclose what this data center will be used for. I just had knee surgery, and the x-ray that of my knee before and after was probably involved some use of artificial intelligence to generate that x-ray. And there are good uses of AI, but there are bad uses of AI. Google already has worldwide 130 hyperscale data centers. How many more do they need? And what will the purpose of this one be? Will it be surveillance? Will it be just collecting data? I have a concern that our civil rights and civil liberties are at risk with the proliferation of these data centers. And I would like for you to require them to say, what's this data center going to be used for? And I'll end it there, but I do ask you, things are moving so fast since it became public that this hyperscale data center and the one in the county are proposed to be built. I think we need to slow down. Mayor Scott, you've been to our Sierra Club meetings. You were kind enough to come to a monthly meeting and answer our questions about the environment. I would ask, slow down. Give us a chance, give more people a chance to ask questions. Give me a chance in an environment where I don't feel rushed to ask those 50 plus questions that I sent to you. And I thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Ms. Kathy Wells and Lake Smith.
You were really terrific out there, you know that?
Thank you, Mayor Scott, city directors. I'm Kathy Wells. I'm president of the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. We've heard a great deal of useful additional material tonight for your consideration in your ordinance. I would point out that about a month back, the coalition requested a public discussion on data centers from this board and this mayor. No reply came. Then this ordinance popped up, and now we are conducting a variety of public hearing tonight, which is a good beginning, but I think clearly is not finished. Our questions never got answered, for example, and we would like you to continue with public discussions on this, and more than one. One of the factors about the speedy passage path has been the Sustainability Commission that you folks had created thoughtfully some time back, got totally bypassed. And they've raised their hand and said, we should take a hand in this. You should delay for that. That's good government. One of the things that no one else has brought up, I will bring to your attention, is apart from building anything new of whatever variety for power, one of the most eminent authorities in this land, Amory Lovins of the Rocky Mountain Institute, has an article in which he describes thoughtfully how the power needs of a large hyperscale data center can be met from the existing community it's building in if you pull energy efficiency from your existing electric ratepayers base. We have lost sight of the fact, we once were a lot more attentive about every bit of energy needs to be conserved, every bit needs to be carefully protected. Once we had factories running open steam lines that just spewed heated air the length of football fields, and we stopped that because it was loss of valuable resource and it got to be too expensive. We've kind of lost track of that. We need to bring that back. Somebody needs to press your authority to see about what can be done to pull energy, especially when we're talking about peak loads, crisis situations, disaster situations, and who might come up short. This should not be a neglected issue. One of the other things that I would like to point out in all of the talk about transparency and paying their full load is exactly what this board voted unanimously to do in April of 2025 in the Memorandum of Understanding. You reduced the electric franchise fee they were going to pay the city to 0.25%. You reduced the water franchise fee to 0%. You reduced the sewer franchise fee to 0%. You have agreed that all the standard permit fees, we've been hearing about fees tonight, for electrical, plumbing, mechanical, firework, and buildings will be capped. The total standard fees will be capped for each data center at $200,000. So that's the incentive package that you agreed to, and they did not pay their way. We obviously may be asked in budget preparations of this board in future months to make up what isn't being collected here and there. So I finish by saying, please take into account all the material you've been presented and thoughtfully delay, incorporate the material, and have some additional public hearings. Thank you.
Melissa Short, rolling cursor, I couldn't see, can make it out. All right. Marissa Pavin.
Thanks everybody for coming that came to speak. It's kind of all y'all's job to be here, so thanks for being here. I know everybody wants to leave, but again, everybody should have their time. I am a resident of West Little Rock since 1979. I have lived in other parts of the country on and off in those 47-ish years, but always came back to Little Rock because it's where my family is, and it's great. I mean, say everything about everything that everybody said. The water's great. Everything's great. And I'm not understanding why we're trying to spoil that. I will say, as a West Little Rock resident, I have been going to Lake Maumelle weekly, if not daily, since November the 5th of 2024, Election Day, to try to get away from the things that are happening in nature. And that is one of the good things about the state, is that you can go within 5 minutes of where I live and see everything. Loon Point, Buffalohead Point, Central Arkansas Water has put great things in there for residents to use. I would say of the times that I've gone to the lake, I have a 90% success rate on catching largemouth bass. And my question is, the state is tied up in water. Everyone I know goes to the water, has kayaks, has lake houses, has boats, has things, even if they can't, that they don't own. They go there. They go there just to sit in the water, to cool off, to reconnect with the land. So I think everybody here kind of understands. And it's not going to be tomorrow that we don't have water. It's going to be 20, 30 years from now. Because the CEO of the water company told us last week that, you know, if Maumelle is low, then we'll go to Lake Sylvia, or we'll go to Lake DeGray. And now tonight he says Grove Ferry. The White River or the Red River, the White River. I mean, there's so many opportunities for people in this state to get out and have a good time. So what's next after that? When we don't have Maumelle, I don't have Maumelle to drive through. You can go to Connor Park near my house. I can drive an hour and a half to Grove Ferry, maybe. Like, at what point will we not have anything left? And it's really hard to have natural stuff in a natural state without water. Thank you.
Jenny Tayez.
I'm sorry to disappoint you because I'm not. See, the sun hangs on to me.
Hello. Alrighty. Director Hadcock, Director Webb, Director Wyrick Hines, Director Miller, Director Andrew Lewis, Director Peck, and Director Converse. It has been 399 days since you guys voted to sell the land to Willow Bend. Almost a year ago, in my belief, you guys sold us out. And I don't know how to feel about that. Honestly, I feel, passionate, I guess, for the way we're supposed to be. This is supposed to work. I don't blame the corporate interest here, the corporations, because that's what they're doing, right? They're looking for their own interest. But you guys are public servants. You guys are supposed to serve our interest. And I don't think you did so a year ago. And I think hiding behind Act 851 isn't going to save you guys either, because that was 747 days since you did that vote. 2 years knowing about it and still going ahead with this project. But here's another number I want to give you guys. it's 154 days till most of you are up for election. And I think I'm just part, not of a silent minority, but of a majority of people, of residents, of your constituents, that are a little bit mad about this, about how there was no discussion, public meetings, or anything since April of last year. I believe this ordinance doesn't have enough teeth. I hope and pray that you guys keep us involved, keep putting ordinances, keep putting whatever you can, because the public wants it. And I hope you guys also know that a lot of the other municipalities that are, pro-data centers, pro-development, they're getting voted out. Why? Because that's how their system works. That's democracy. It's we the people, not we the corporations. So, I'm a minister. I look out for my flock. I hope you guys look out for us too, because we put you in those chairs, and we can put you out of those chairs by grouping up together and registering and voting. So, I'm not as eloquent as Reverend Griffin over here. I hope to be one day, but I just want you guys to know that there is a large amount of people that couldn't come here that are willing to do something in the way that 250 years ago our founding fathers allowed us to do. That we vote for you to represent us. And when you don't represent us, you're not there anymore. Thank you, and God bless.
Matthew Oba.
Good evening, Council. I'll make it real quick. I'm coming on the back of a lot of people coming behind a lot of people who have a lot of facts, who have a lot of information. I came here to speak as a fourth generation citizen of Central Arkansas, of Little Rock. My great grandparents grew up around Perrin, west in Pulaski County, out in Lake Maumelle, Lake Winona territory. I grew up spending a lot of time out there. I grew up learning how to fish at Lake Maumelle. Was listening to what our other speakers said, and a lot of what they said is what I came here to say. But I do regular checks out at Lake Winona.
Oh, what's going on here still?
What I see, I haven't seen water flow over the spillway at Lake Winona in years. It's been 2 or 3 years since I've seen anything but a dry spillway. I go out there all the time. I took my kids out there on Saturday after the biggest flood rains that we've had of the year. There was no water coming over that spillway. This data center may not eat up enough water to make a difference in Lake Winona. It may not drain Lake Winona out, but the next one might, or the one after that might. How many data centers are we going to build before these lakes get drained and before the wonderful water quality that Mr. Bohannon came up here and spoke about is degraded, depleted to the point where the citizens can't enjoy it anymore? I want my boys to be able to grow up and do the same thing that I do and take their children to enjoy something that we're so lucky to have here in Central Arkansas, something that I can leave my house in North Little Rock and in 30 minutes be in one of the most beautiful areas of the state. And I'd like to see it kept that way. And I think that you guys are in a unique position right now to at least slow this down, stop it for now. And like everyone said, let's really look at those facts and the data that I don't have. I just know what I see with my eyes and what I feel in my heart.
Thank you. Jenny Norisi.
This meeting started.
Did you want to? I know you spoke to us. Different. All right.
Thanks for all those who are still watching this. All right, let me sign off here.
Thank you again. I have 3 things I will try to make as quick as possible. The first thing, many people brought up the issue of fining the corporations involved if regulations are not met, which, yes, 100%. On that note, though, I think it is worth looking at the notorious history of mega corporations when they have violated any regulations, particularly environmental. The fines are usually not heavy enough to stop them from doing things again. These are companies, especially now, we've heard these amazing numbers quoted for salaries of people that will work there. The money behind that doesn't blink at fines, I would imagine, if we look at any other corporations in the past. This is another one of those situations. If we look at history and we don't see anything else, like, what do we have to go on here? This is a bigger entity than what we have also dealt with in the past. So when that's being considered, I would like that to also be considered. What would be the number that would be an appropriate fine to do the job of the regulation? Additionally, a woman who had wanted to speak here tonight, she had to leave. There wasn't enough time. I believe her name was Perry Doubleday. She may have had a card in there. She had some things she wanted to say. I just met her on the way out, but something about the number of data centers was misquoted for the US. She said it was something like 500, and that Canada's already ahead of us with 532. I cannot verify that, but I wanted to pass that on for her. Additionally, when we're talking about these wetland credits, and this is something I had heard about, but immediately me and my friend were on our phones like, what does this translate into? Technically, what does that look like? Boots on the ground. What is a wetland credit? What does it translate to? How is it used? This is all something I'm still learning about, but I would like it to be stated that if you remove a 500-year-old tree from the ecosystem it has evolved in, and then you think, I'll just plant 500 new saplings in its place. Easy. It is not the same thing. You have taken out a pillar in a thing that stands because you don't understand the role it's playing. You have removed an organ out of an organism. It's not going to be equivalent. So in this conversation of ecological credits and so forth, I would like that zoomed out perspective to be considered. Whoever y'all are bringing on to be a part of that conversation, the people that are actually experts in that field, who have no ties to the profits that come from any of these other organizations. Additionally, the last thing, am I allowed to ask Lorraine a question?
No, you have to speak to it.
Okay, so, well, in that case.
But if you have a question, I'm sure somebody may ask.
Let me think how to phrase this. If I were able to ask her a question, I would like to invite her to join me to visit these places. I would like to know how she personally visited these locations, seen what grows there. Does she know what is there from her own personal stance? Or is it all information being relayed to her? I take people out to connect with our natural spaces because we live with this false dichotomy that the wild is somewhere way out there, not right here in our backyards. If we're the natural state, we have to fix that. I watch people light up and like their lives are changed the second they can identify what's around them. It changes your world. And so if that is not something, and I extend that to anyone in this room, honestly, I think that will change the way we regard the land and how it's used for policy going forward for the betterment of everyone here, not for some idealistic cause of saving the monarchs while we should also still do that, which was one of the things that Perry told me on the way out. She said, this isn't the path of a monarch migration pathway. So that is what I would offer up as something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure if you give your card or information to L'Oreal, she'll take it.
Thank you.
Aaron Mitchell. Karen Mitchell. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so before I came in, I pulled together a little bit of data, and maybe I'm misinformed, but it is from a government website. Central Arkansas is listed by, I believe, the National Oceanic Association as in extreme drought. We've been in drought since July of 2025. There are about 398 farms located in Pulaski County, and that is per the 2022 census data. That also doesn't speak for the water that those who are dependent upon well water for their drinking water would require. I've seen in videos that the president of Central Arkansas Water said on the hottest day, one data center, or maybe the two that are supposed to be in Little Rock, would require maybe up to 4 million gallons of water. I mean, over a year, and because, I mean, it's hot through the summer now until like October. It's going to be very hot, and it gets hotter every year. And I feel as though, I mean, we don't know. We don't have the transparency. There's non-disclosure agreements involved. So someone can come up here and say there's going to be more water, which doesn't make sense. There's going to be more electricity, which also doesn't make sense without that transparency. And we're just supposed to take that as it is. And I don't believe that, and I don't trust that. There's been a lot of, a lack of transparency here, and it leads me to believe that there are some people who are benefiting from this, which is why it is shrouded in secrecy. So I saw in the Democrat Gazette, I don't know if this is to be believed, but apparently some people who are sitting here tonight have signed NDAs, which I think that as a public official, that I mean, your duty is to the public. It is not to personal, it is not to yourself. It is not to a corporation. It is to your constituents. And what else? I think that we deserve transparency. That's, I mean, the underlying statement that I wanted to make is transparency is needed. I mean, there was a woman in here earlier who made a case for wanting a permit, and I don't think that she understood what was needed. And we looked away, but a permit was granted to Google with, I mean, no oversight is what it seems like, because, I mean, it's only become, the information has become available now, and now we can speak on it. But I mean, at this point, what you're going to be voting on is whether or not to, regulate them at this point. And it doesn't seem like the interest of the public was really considered at all. The woman from Google earlier said that she wanted to, Google wants to work with us instead of making a decision for us. And I don't think that that is what has happened. I mean, it's evidenced by the way that this has taken place. So I just asked you guys, please consider the constituents. Please consider us. This is your community as well. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Sykes.
Good evening. All right, we've heard lots of numbers today, so I'm going to throw one out here for you. It's 47 seconds. That is exactly how long it took y'all last April to vote for the data center. 47 seconds. I did go back, watch the YouTube video, and count it. So you also called it an industrial project and not a data center. That is not transparency. And yet here we are listening to our Google representative talking about how wonderful they are and all the benefits they have. So why is it shrouded in secrecy? Why are we just now, after a year, able to provide comments to you? I'm not against technology. I'm not against economic development, but I am against being excluded from the conversation. And that is exactly what has been occurring. Now, with all the texts, the phone calls, you decide you care. You're putting articles in the Democrat Gazette talking about a quick vote. How is that leadership? How does that prove that you care about the people that vote for you? Again, no responsibility, but I will give credit where credit is due. And I do thank you, Kathy, for saying that earlier today. So far, she's the one and only who has talked about transparency and it not being given to us. So in closing, I just have one question, and that is for the Google Center rep, which I know I can't ask her this, but I want to know, will this be used for national security? That is all.
Tobias Peoples.
Mayor, directors, thank you for having me. My name is Tobias. I am a citizen of Little Rock. I live in Ward 1. And I'm not going to waste too much of you guys' time. What I'm calling for is a moratorium on this. I want to see us just step back and take the time that we need to put real strong regulations in place. And I think that we should be bold with what we ask from them as far as these regulations go. We can't ban it outright, but we can require that they meet some standards. And it's great for them to say that they want to meet those standards and they want to exceed those standards. Let's just make that the standard for data centers across the board if we're ever going to have them. I don't want to see the wetlands touched. I don't want to see fossil fuels being used to generate massive amounts of electricity and putting particulates and emissions into our home. I mean, they're going into the air when they have these diesel generators or natural gas turbines. There have been studies that show massive amounts of particulates coming into the air, and those are not going to stay in the port of Little Rock. The wind will carry them, and the water will carry them as well. I don't think it's outrageous to demand that any generation or any electricity that they generate on the premises be done with renewable resources. I know that they have to generate power there because I don't want to be paying for it out of my utility bill. We may or may not be doing that anyway, but I would love to see them generating clean electricity on site. And don't know how we prove that it's not their fault. How do we prove that it's not their fault that our rates are going up when they are pulling energy from the same place that we are? Is there any sort of record saying that we can point to say that it's not their fault? Even if there is anybody going to believe it? Trust is not very high with government right now. I don't want to put too much blame on anybody in particular. I think we all kind of play a part in that. But I think that the government is going to have to do some, they're going to have to make some pretty major concessions to get the public on board with this project if it's going to happen. Otherwise, they're going to see their rates go up and they're going to immediately think about this data center and they're immediately going to think about the mayor and the board of directors that let it happen. Whether or not that's grounded in reality doesn't really matter. That's the way people are going to feel, and that's the way that they're going to vote. Thank you so much for your time. That's it.
All right, members of the city board, we've heard from all of the members of the community that wrote out cards for citizen communication as well as the agenda items. Are there any more additional questions that anyone would like to ask? We got a bunch. Director Computers first.
Mayor, I wish you would define for the people here what we're voting on tonight, what we're trying to do and what you brought up and why we're trying to do this. And secondly, I think that we need to let the people from Google have a response time to respond to some of the things that have been said. That we have a very orderly system that you run, but in the end, we've had 2 hours now of people talking about different things, and I think that it's only fair that they have a chance to respond to what's been said.
Sure. And I'll do it on the back end. Do you have any response to anything that you've heard tonight?
Yes, and I want to thank everyone for their comments. And I want to just kind of point out just a few things. And I think that maybe people think there's a lot of distance between where you all are and where we are, but I actually don't think so. So one of the things that I've heard consistently tonight is people want to have more information. And what I hope I was trying to impress upon people is we're just at the beginning. And so the rest of this process continues with public processes that you all will be able to participate in. The studies that people are asking for, that is part of this upcoming process. So I want you all to know that we get that, and that is part of the process that we will engage in. Also, there were comments about, having conversations with the community and taking tours. Sign me up. So that is real. I am happy to go on a tour with anyone and understand better the community from you all's perspective. That is what I do. That is what our team does. And I just do want to point out, and I won't talk too much, but the team that we have, our water lead for Arkansas has a background doing consultancy for the EPA. Our energy lead works with previously prior to Google, worked with energy advocacy groups, some of which are in this room. These are the people that come here and understand the impacts, and then we talked about the impacts. We come to Google, and Google hires the human beings that care about these issues to advise the projects that we build. And then we talk to communities. That is part of our process. So I don't think there is as much distance as you all think. And then to the last piece about transparency, and I appreciate the comment about our website, and the website is not the final determination of where we have our information. Again, as I talked about above and beyond, the website is there to provide more information on a real-time basis to communities. The public process, which again is still unfolding, we could, again, if we were just doing what the permits say, and it's not just for the director, it's not just at the City of Little Rock, there are a number of different organizations that come in to regulate us. If we just did what the ordinances were saying, you wouldn't hear from us until the next permit. We don't have any permits just yet. The process is just beginning. And there's been a lot of conversations about gas turbines and things like that. I also don't want our project in West Memphis, where we announced that we were building a 600 megawatt solar power in partnership with Entergy. I don't want that to be confused with the project in Memphis that has a different operation. So I do, there were some things that said, I just want to clarify those things. I hear what you all are saying. I think there continue to be opportunities for us to converse. This is the beginning of the process. We have an MOU. There was no other secrets that were hidden. This is the beginning of the process. The process reveals itself. There are studies that continue to have to be done. In order to get to the next permit, we have to do things like acoustic studies. We have to do things like energy studies, water management studies. Those are the next parts of the process. Those haven't happened yet. We don't have any permits to speak of at this point. So I just wanted to clarify that. I really do appreciate the feedback from everyone. We are listening, again, and I invite you to check in on our website, put all your comments there. It is helpful. It is helpful. And again, I'm happy it was Miss Narisi, but the young lady who said that. I think that we have those opportunities to continue these conversations. So I welcome that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week I brought up the water use effectiveness, WUE, and the PUE. And when I was looking at it, it looked like that we had 0.5 was the measurement that we were supposed to put in there. And then also there was a PUE. And I'd heard that the PSC actually monitors this. Brad, do you know if they do or not? Because what I was concerned about was that you get this data for a year and then there was no impact. But I'd heard that the PSC really did monitor those items.
I do not know that, ma'am. You'd have to ask them if they monitor that.
Okay. The other question I have is, I talked about the noise part of it, the DBA part of it, and there were some that if there was an issue, if there was a violation, then it would take 30 days for corrective action, and then someone would have to comply within 180 days. And I stated I thought that was too long a process. And then I got concerned about the monitoring on it, and it didn't seem like it was real-time monitoring. So have you thought about that anymore since last week?
There is on-site monitoring at these hyperscale centers. So they have to report back to us.
Okay.
So we're not out there monitoring just on a day-by-day basis. They're monitoring it on their side.
And the mayor said that there were penalties that were already set up in the I-3 zoning. Are you aware of penalties that were set up if they didn't meet those, the water and the power objectives and the noise?
There are penalties for any zoning violation.
Are there specifically for the items in this ordinance that we're identifying with data centers?
Ordinances that are violated are covered under the general ordinance, which is up to $1,000 a day, $500 a day for multi-day fines.
So these items are covered then under our ordinance?
Because it's an ordinance violation, yes.
Okay, just wanted to know that. All right. This is a resolution, well, this is an ordinance, but our MOU that was done in April of 2025 was a resolution. How binding is that? And by the way, I'm not under NDA.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Memoranda of understanding are usually agreements to agree. So there are things that have been done by the city and things that have been done by corporations with this MOU that they have steps they have taken in reliance upon what the city has said it will do. To that extent, if the city just said you can't put it here, not only do we have the violation of a state statute potentially, but we also have Did they take a step by detrimentally
Gosh, sir,
relying on
sometimes I
that,
pick
and
these
are
people
they
because of
deprived of
the
economic
way they
value? And then
sound
we would get into
to
a
put people
struggle
to
of,
sleep.
well, you paid X for the land, so until you show us you can't sell the land or you can't sell it for X, then you really haven't lost anything. But that puts everybody in a battle, which is why lawyers are hated.
Okay, so we have lawyers. Okay, so the ordinance that we have before us tonight does apply to Google that we're talking about tonight.
It applies more to.
I know it's
My
a
understanding is that Google's got a very strong argument about the 300,000 foot building and what can and can't be done with it. It doesn't have as strong an argument about any regulations being put into place that do not violate state statutes or federal statutes that would deal with any expansion from Google. I mean, we've heard that there's going to be 5 buildings. Right. We've heard that there's going to be outbuildings. There's a thing in the MOU of an accessory building, and I don't think another data center would qualify as an accessory building. So I think that we can take actions that will definitely apply to those, and the types of actions that I think we can take would end up being the very types of things that have been discussed here tonight. You've got different agencies that may look at certain things. Judge Griffin was right that the PSC isn't going to be looking at zoning violations. Right. But on the other hand, the Planning Commission isn't going to be looking at water quality violations.
Okay, so what are the city's stormwater requirements in regards to this application or this location?
That would be for any industrial site that is at the port. Same thing.
But specifically, what would the stormwater requirements be for? Because we've talked about floods and we've talked about other things. What specifically would that apply to with this ordinance?
I think
the
Go ahead,
stormwater manual will deal with that. And basically, in this instance, I think the major application is going to be that as they build it, they're going to have to build it in such a way that they're in compliance with the loss of waters off of impermeable surfaces and everything else that's already a part of our stormwater drainage program.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all of my questions. You know, I'm thankful that we're finally talking about regulations or processes that are required with Google, but I'm like some of the people that have been here. I don't think it's quite gone far enough for us, but it could be the fact that Google hasn't gone far enough. You know, they're in the beginning stages of putting things together. And I do hope that as we go into this, that there's more dialogue and possibly amend the ordinance for some other things that might need to be applied here as people have talked about. So I guess that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Director Webb.
Can you come back to me?
Director Hines.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everybody's input. I think we find ourselves a little bit tethered to some germane issues, but we're talking about our zoning regulation, further refining our I3 use, which is where this business would have fit anyway as a heavy industrial use, our heaviest industrial use. We're further refining this and putting some regulations intact in place. May not be strong enough for some, maybe too weak for others, but it's a starting place. They can be amended at any time, they can be changed. And I can have my economics professors blaring in my head. You never foresee the unintended consequences of legislation that you have. So you have to be able to amend it, change it as you go forward in the future. As we go through this process, working with them, I think I think our community is going to see a much better process going forward. And I think with all things, they bought over 300 acres at the port. The fact that 17 acres has potentially impacted wetlands, if you would listen to what the Google representative said, they're pulling down their Corps of Engineers permit to recalculate based on some transmission updates that I'm sure Energy and their partners have looked at a different way of bringing power in. So I would agree that this is not the end all be all. It's the beginning of a long process that will be lots of cussing and discussing, and I'm sure we will hear from everyone again. I am ready to put this into place tonight. It's a good first step, although I know some of you don't agree it's quite adequate enough, but it's better than nothing because they could proceed with no regulation under our I3 use. This is a further refinement. That's what I want to remind everybody of. We're putting more regulations on this particular business, and I can probably promise you that if we had a steel mill here, it would be much more impactful to our environment than what these data centers are going to be spread over a 300-acre site. But that's just my amateur opinion based on 30 years of being in business. But I appreciate it. I'm ready to vote for in the affirmative on this ordinance.
Director Peck.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everybody who has been here for now 4 hours and 15 minutes. Not that I'm counting. Just a couple of things. There are some of us on the board that wanted to request a 6-month moratorium because there are so many questions that need to be asked. But frankly, we don't have, no pun intended, Mr. Mayor, we don't have the votes to do that. A moratorium is certainly not a ban. It's just an official pause, an opportunity for more discussion. I'm very pleased, Brad, at you and the planning department, all of your hard work that you've put into this. There's still so many questions, and I'm sad to report that we don't have enough votes to go forward with the moratorium, but there are 4 or 5 of us on the board that wanted to do that.
Director Webb and Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And George and Susan and Richard and Judge Griffin and all the people who asked us to wait. Lance and I often disagree, but I'm going to vote for the ordinance, not because we didn't hear you and not because we don't share the same concerns. But if we put something in place, we can amend it. And we can. And I just wanted to make that statement.
All right, Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to thank everyone for all the input they've had here tonight. It's been very helpful. As Google has stated, they're at the beginning of this process. I support this ordinance just to put some parameters in place, but I fully expect that once this process is going down the road and other oversight agencies are talked to, and the public, like what they've done here tonight at the city board, will be at the PSC, will be at the Corps of Engineers, will be at the state agencies. We're going to probably learn more. And as you put your questions into the Google's website, littlerockdatacenter.com, we're going to learn even more. So I fully expect, as we learn more information, we'll come back and probably do some amendments to this ordinance. But I want to have something, to have some parameters, just like Director Hines has stated, to start with. But I fully expect that we'll probably have some amendments as we learn more. And I think that's prudent. Thank you.
Director Adcock. And,
Yes. Tonight, could we amend this number 12, city attorney, and put some strength in here, some penalties in here? Or should we just hold this and come up with those within the next 2 weeks and then add it at that time?
Director Adcock, there are penalty provisions in here. This is made a part of your zoning code. Violations of zoning ordinances are covered by the general ordinance violation provision. I think it's 9-1, but I haven't quoted it in such a long time. I may be wrong. And that's the one that allows us to charge, and we charge the maximum. It used to be 1,000, it may actually be $3,000 for an ordinance violation. And then if it's a continuing violation, there are daily fines that you can impose. So they're already applicable to this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Director Pierce, and then I'll give my comment.
Well, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. I appreciate Google working with us. I think there's a lot of issues going forward. I'm going to vote for this tonight. I support it wholeheartedly. I think you're going to be a good corporate partner for us. I think you have the will to make this community better. I appreciate what Brian does at the port, and I'm sure he will watch out after this. But I look at this as just the first step in a dialogue. And the dialogue, as you mentioned, is 18 months or 20 months or 25 months. It's 2030. You said that we probably before we're going to know anything. And I also think we need to say thank you to Jay and Randy Zook. I mean, y'all have been here all night long, have been not done anything but smile and kind of smile and and try to help us. We have to always find a balance between having a corporate partner that I think will be a good corporate partner and satisfying what the people feel like in this community is not going well. And I think this was a great dialogue to start with. I think we've got great partners to move forward with. And I think we also need to thank the mayor for doing this in one session, bringing it up, talking about it, and then getting us off, I think, on the right foot. So I think all in all, after 4 hours, it was a successful evening, and thank you.
All right, members of the board, I know it's been a long night, but I know there was a few questions. I just want to set the stage, and then we'll just take a vote for everyone here. One, I want to make sure that everyone knows how appreciative we are of everyone who spent their time here tonight to ask all these questions. We were prepared to be here to midnight, and we wanted to just want to make sure, as you said, the spirit of appreciation. So thank your prayer was answered. Secondly, I really, there's a lot of information that's out there. It's particularly my job to make certain that I share the facts. Right, wrong, indifferent, whether you support it or not, Act 851 prevents cities and counties from banning data centers. So, if there is a concern about banning data centers, this body and the county quorum court did not put that in action. The state legislature put that in action. So if there's a concern, please reach out to your state representative and your state senator who enacted that. And so the only way it can be repealed is at the state legislature. We cannot do that. Hence the reason why this ordinance before us, because what we can do is regulate it. I can tell you that this team over here spent a lot of time and attention on these regulations. And because we have an existing framework, because cities have zoning, land use, and zoning regulations already in place that we do day in, day out, whether it's Amazon, Trex, HMS Manufacturing, Avco Steel, they have to go through a very litigious process to get approved in the city of Little Rock. And if they do not obey by those ordinances, they are fined. So, again, Act 851 preempts our city. This is our way of protecting residents within the framework of what we can do. It's easy to say no data center. The fact of the matter is, the law won't allow you to ban it. This is our opportunity to do what we can. And oh, by the way, I won't be surprised. And so I want to encourage people to pay attention to the legislature. I won't be surprised what may happen in January because of this debate right now. So let's make sure we understand that. Secondly, in regards to the inspections, we will uphold the process like we do in any other business in here in our city and hold their feet to the fire if they do not comply. From that standpoint, I want to make sure that's clear from that standpoint. Then moving from that, this creates a framework. I think many cities, I've talked to other folks around the country, they're grappling with, particularly mid-sized and larger cities are grappling with this. I think you've seen different things across the nation as well. This is, as many people said, this is a start. It's going to be a journey. If there's something else that we need to do to protect our residents, we will protect our residents. And then there's other opportunities through the other process that we don't even control, whether it's the Public Service Commission, whether it's the EPA and things of that nature. All we can do is control what we can control. That's our job. And that's where we're moving forward from that standpoint. So I'm glad we are able to regulate data centers here in the city of Little Rock from that standpoint. We've had 3 readings. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We are now, is there a motion to go to executive session?
Before you go, there was a request made by some about sponsorship of the ordinance, and if there are members who wish to do that in accordance with our things, if they would let Ally or me know tomorrow, we can get that on the final draft.
Yeah, I know definitely Directors Webb, Peck, Miller, Lewis, and Compuris had already shared that they wanted to be a sponsor. I believe Director Phillips as well. Anyone else that I did name, if you want to be a sponsor, just share. I know you voted for it, so it means you sponsor as well because you voted for it. So, but just share with, if you want to have your name on the ordinance with Ms. Alley. Is there a motion to go to executive session to discuss boards and the commissions? There's a motion second. For everybody to understand, that means you all can leave. We can't leave yet. We got to discuss boards and commissions, and then we'll be right back. So we're taking a recess.
Now they're taking a recess? Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is a bit bizarre. Well, folks, they are taking a recess. I guess they're trying to see how much more checks they can get from Google and Avio. I don't know what these people are doing. Of course, Frank Scott Jr., if he had fought hard against these data centers as he did for his concrete park that was supposed to be over I-30, the I-630 interchange between 6th and 9th Street, if he had lobbied as much against data centers as he did for that, things would have been different. But of course he didn't, because he sold out to this. The deals were made years before anybody even knew this was going on. And so while they're in their supposed recess, somebody posted in the meeting chat on YouTube, packets to run for city board and mayor are available now. Filing is at the end of July/early August. And somebody, he said to double check. City board positions up here are awards 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. And I believe they usually only have, I think there's 2 city members per ward. And so some are, half of them are up for a vote 1 year, and then the other half are up another year. Someone else, Pretty Soul on YouTube chat, said you can vote to delay the process. So yeah, they could have done that. They could have just said we're going to, delay this table the vote for another time, and they didn't bother to do that. So why they're doing this, and of course they should have had multiple public comments about this years before it ever happened. But of course they didn't. And let me see what's going on in Twitter X regarding Little Rock, if there's any post about this. It may not be, because a lot of just looking around. No, most of the time when you type in a city, it's about sports on Twitter X. Let me type in. Let me try Little Rock Data Center. No, nothing latest. No, nothing particularly out there on that. Yeah, they've had about 4 hours where they've talked about this. And they see on Truth Social. See any truths about that? No. One of the problems with Truth Social is when you try to look for something on there and some of these conservative alternative sites, you don't get your local stuff. You just get national stuff. So let me look on Gab. Yeah, same thing. Only my post here. So here's my account on Gab, Keep AR Legal. And then Keep AR Legal is also on Twitter X, where I do regular posts. And then on Twitter X, I'm Keep Arkansas Legal. Here is a story I had kind of forgotten about, and then when people started mentioning that we need to build these data centers to get ahead of China, I had to remember that the big tech companies that actually helped China build its authoritarian mass surveillance system. And this is an article from 2019 that talks about that. An American organization founded by tech giants Google and IBM is working with a company that is helping China's authoritarian government conduct mass surveillance against its citizens. The Open Power Foundation, a nonprofit led by Google and IBM executives with the aim of trying to drive innovation, has set up a collaboration between IBM, Chinese company Semtium, and U.S. chip manufacturer Xilinx. Together, they have worked to advance a breed of microprocessors that enable computers to analyze vast amounts of data more efficiently. Shenzhen-based Semtium is using devices to enhance the capabilities of internet surveillance and censorship technology it provides to human rights abusing security agencies in China. So no, helping Google build data centers is not going to help us get a leg up or stop an authoritarian government from abusing AI. Because as I said before, as this article shows, Google helped set that up for China. And if y'all have any of you other similar stories, you can share that. They're still on apparently some sort of break, but I think what they're going to do is just come back. They're going to see how much, and they're going to see how they want to create this charade that y'all had a choice in what was going to happen. They're going to vote down any chance to block the data center, and that'll be the end of it. And then people get a long drive back home.
We're coming back into session. We just met on boards and commissions. We'll be appointing Tracy Cooper.
All right, let me
to the
turn
Airport
off
Commission.
the.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.
Okay, it looks like they adjourned the meeting. Well, folks, that's it. For those who kind of missed this, you can stay. Let me cancel that. They decided to adjourn the meeting, so I better stop this video before it tries to pop up. Actually, let me just get out of this altogether. All right, folks. So very long stream here, 3 hours, 42 minutes. And I actually left part of this meeting out. But I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thanks for y'all watching. Visit Just the Right Angle, where you can see updates on issues that affect you. Check out the description where I have links if you like what you see. Donate. Also check out organizations that are fighting for your rights. They've been fighting for your rights long before this data center stuff came out, and they could use your help as well. Other than that, Proverbs 29:2 is the verse I kind of have here that I always lead. It's the main thumbnail for here. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people mourn. It's Proverbs 29:2. You all